Family picnics used to be simple when we were kids. Metal swings that screeched, juice boxes that leaked, and my sister Sara dragging me by the wrist to race her across the field. Back then, she called me her shadow, her teammate, her other half. I don't know exactly when I stopped being any of those things. But today, as I stepped out of my car and saw our entire extended family gathered under the giant oak tree, spreading out mats and arranging food trays, that familiar heaviness settled in my chest again, the one that always arrives before the laughter does. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. Just the quiet knowledge that somehow, no matter how hard I tried, I never fit into the version of the family everyone else seemed to belong to. I held the fruit bowl I brought in both hands, walking toward the group. Mom spotted me first. "Oh, she's here," she said, the tone flat, more of an announcement than a welcome. It stung more than it should have. "Hi, Mom," I murmured, placing the bowl on the table. Sara was standing near the cooler, arranging bottles of juice like she was organizing an event. She looked perfect as always, hair tied neatly, gold studs in her ears, wearing a soft pastel dress that made her look like the daughter every mother bragged about. She turned, noticed me, and gave a smile. But it was polite. The kind you give neighbors, not siblings. "Hey, you made it," she said lightly. "Of course," I replied, though it came out too soft. We hadn't argued recently. We hadn't fought. We hadn't even disagreed. But we also hadn't connected. Not in months. There was something cold between us, unspoken, confusing, and growing. Dad clapped Sara's back gently. "Beta, you organized everything so well. You always do." Then he nodded toward me. A tiny nod. Not even a greeting. I swallowed hard. Aunties whispered small compliments to Sara, cousins hovered around her, and every few minutes someone would say, "Where's Sara? She'll know. Ask Sara, she handles things." Thank God for Sara. It wasn't jealousy that hit me. It was invisibility. I laid out paper plates while people brushed past me, without noticing. I asked two cousins if they needed help, and both replied, "No, Sara's got it." Someone handed me a ketchup bottle and said, "Can you hold this?" like I was a stand. I forced a smile, pretending I didn't feel the pinch behind my ribs. But the truth was I did. Every minute. Every second. Because I had been trying, truly trying, to be part of this family again. To show up. To help. To matter. But somehow, Sara always made it look effortless. Always made it seem like she carried everything while I just existed in the background. As the food was finally arranged, Dad announced, "Okay, everyone, come gather. Sara wants to say something before we start." My stomach dipped. Sara stood in the center of the circle, sunlight catching her hair like a spotlight. She held a plastic cup in her hand, tapping it lightly with her nail. Everyone quieted. I lingered at the edge of the group, folding my arms around myself. Sara cleared her throat, smiling warmly at our relatives. "To family," she began. "To being together again after so long." People murmured in agreement. And she continued, eyes bright, voice steady. "To the ones who always show up. The ones who support us through everything. The ones who never fail us." Everyone looked around, smiling, nodding. But then Sara lifted her glass slightly higher. And the next word she said hit me like a punch straight to the lungs. "To the real reason our family stays together," she said proudly. "To the people we can always count on." Her smile widened. "And you know exactly who I mean." The family cheered. Everyone clapped. But my heart dropped. Because she wasn't looking at me. Not even close. She was looking past me, at a group of cousins behind me, praising them with a warmth she hadn't shown me in years. And in that moment, I felt something inside me go still. Cold. Frozen. I stood there among cheers and laughter, but my throat tightened like I'd swallowed sand. I hadn't expected praise. But I hadn't expected that either. A toast that made it painfully clear who mattered and who didn't. The cheers around me grew louder, warm and effortless, the kind of celebration that fills the air with pride. But for me, the sound was muffled, distant, like I was underwater, hearing echoes from the surface. I stood there, gripping the paper plate in my hand so tightly it bent. Sara's smile never wavered as she clinked her cup with everyone around her. A few cousins shouted, "Yes, that's so true," to the real ones. "We know exactly who you mean, Sara." Everyone was laughing except me. Not a single person noticed that I hadn't raised my cup. Not one pair of eyes searched for me in the small crowd. I was there, but not included. Present, but not counted. That was what froze me. Not the toast itself, but the fact that I didn't even fit into the category of people who show up. When I had been showing up my entire life, just never in ways they valued. I tried to swallow the growing lump in my throat. My eyes stayed glued to the grass beneath my feet, the sunlight turning each blade into a sharp, shimmering needle. My heart thudded like it wanted to escape. Mom walked past me carrying a salad bowl. She didn't notice the look on my face, didn't notice how stiffly I stood. Instead, she pressed a kiss to Sara's cheek and said, "Beautiful toast, Beta." Sara's smile turned gentle. Just felt like appreciating the ones who deserve it. The ones who deserve it. That part cut deeper than anything else, because it told me exactly what she meant without saying my name. I took a small step back, feeling the earth shift beneath me. I didn't want to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Not because of her. But my chest felt tight, like all the air in the world belonged to someone else. I forced myself to walk toward the food table, pretending to grab a napkin. Anything to avoid letting people see the way my face had gone pale. As I moved, I overheard two cousins talking. "Sara always does so much for everyone. She's the responsible one. Yeah, she's the reason these things even happen. Others just show up empty-handed." The words didn't just sting, they sank. Empty-handed. As if I hadn't brought anything. Not the fruit. Not the years of effort. Not the emotional labor nobody saw. I pressed my lips together until they hurt. Dad's voice joined in from behind me. "Our Sara, she's always been the dependable one. Always." He said it with pride, the kind that carries weight. The kind that makes everything else feel small. I picked up a bottle of water, even though I wasn't thirsty. My hands trembled, because while they toasted the ones who show up, nobody seemed to remember how many times I had shown up too. The late-night calls. The last-minute babysitting, the emotional support, the silent favors, the unspoken sacrifices. All of it erased because people only saw who stood in the spotlight, never the one holding it steady from the shadows. I took a deep breath, feeling the air get stuck somewhere between my lungs and my heart. My jaw clenched. My eyes stung. I reminded myself, quietly, internally, that I wasn't jealous of Sara. Not really. I didn't want what she had. I didn't want her spotlight. I didn't want the praise that made her glow. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't invisible, like I mattered too. As I stood there, isolated in a crowd of familiar faces, something shifted inside me, a small, stubborn spark. The kind that begins with pain but turns into clarity. Because for the first time, I saw the truth. It wasn't just the toast that hurt. It was years of being sidelined. Years of being pushed behind her. Years of people assuming she carried everything, while forgetting that I carried things too. And the longer I stood in that picnic yard, the more I realized I wasn't going to swallow the pain this time. Not like all the other times. Not again. Because I felt something rising in me. Not anger, not bitterness, but a voice. One I had silenced for far too long. A voice that whispered, "Enough." I walked toward the far edge of the picnic area, pretending I needed to straighten the napkins or rearrange the food table, but really, I just needed distance. The laughter behind me felt too loud, too sharp, like it was slicing through the thin thread of calm I was clinging to. Every time the wind shifted, Sara's voice carried across the yard, bright, confident, adored. Meanwhile, I felt like a faded watercolor in a room full of bold colors. I tried to distract myself, reaching for a stack of paper cups. My hand shook. I set them down. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want anyone to turn around and ask what was wrong. Worse, I didn't want them to not ask. because that would hurt even more. While everyone gathered around Sara, congratulating her, laughing with her, clinking cups with her, I hovered on the outskirts like an extra in my own family. My cousin Sara approached the drink table, brushing past me without even glancing up. "Is there any cold juice left?" she asked, not to me, but to the air. Before I could reply, she spotted Sara and waved. "Oh, Sara. Do you know if there's more?" "Of course. It was always Sara." I stepped aside. Again. From a distance, I watched her respond cheerfully. "Check the cooler." I organized everything inside. Everyone laughed, praising her efficiency, as if she were hosting a wedding. Maybe she was trying to be helpful. Maybe she didn't realize. Maybe she didn't care. I didn't know. But I knew how it felt. It felt like being erased in real time. My chest tightened again. I inhaled, but the air didn't go in smoothly. And then another voice drifted toward me. My aunt. I swear, she's always the one taking charge. The rest just show up. Laughter followed. My stomach twisted. I wasn't sure if the rest meant me, but the way people looked in my direction said enough. I stood frozen beside the table, my hand gripping the edge until my knuckles turned white. Had I really been reduced to an afterthought? To someone who just existed at the edge of everyone else's celebration? My mind replayed the toast over and over. To the ones who always show up. To the real reason our family stays together. You know exactly who I mean. And the way she looked straight past me, that part lodged itself in my chest like a thorn. The breeze ruffled my hair, carrying the smell of grilled chicken and fresh-cut grass. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting warm patches on the ground. It should have felt comforting, but it didn't. Because no matter how bright the day was, something inside me had already dimmed. I watched kids chasing each other, moms laughing, uncles arguing about cricket, but their joy only emphasized my isolation. Like the entire family existed in one bubble, and I existed outside it. A hollow ache spread through me, familiar but sharper today. A feeling I had tried to ignore for years. The feeling of being the forgotten one. The optional one. The one who could disappear for days and nobody would notice until something needed to be done. I blinked hard, trying to stop the sting in my eyes. Not here. Not in front of them. Not because of her. But my emotions were rising faster than I could bury them. Behind me, Dad laughed loudly at something Sara said. Mom added, "See? This is why we rely on her. Always." That was it. The sentence that pulled the final thread holding my composure. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't competition. It was the realization that the people who raised me had never really seen me. Not the late night studying. Not the times I helped quietly. Not the emotional support I offered without announcing it. They only saw what fit the version of a good daughter they wanted. And I was never that version. A tear finally slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away instantly, hoping no one saw. As if summoned by my thoughts, Sara turned and caught my eye from across the yard. Her smile faltered. A flicker of something, confusion, maybe guilt, crossed her face. But she didn't walk over. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just hesitated, then turned back to her conversation. That tiny moment, that decision not to come, said more than her entire toast. Because in that split second I realized, even she didn't see me anymore. Even she had forgotten who I used to be to her. The wind shifted again, brushing against my face. I stared at the grass, breathing shakily. Something inside me whispered, "You can't keep staying silent. Not today. Not anymore." And for the first time, I didn't silence that voice. I wasn't planning to say anything. I wasn't planning to ruin the picnic. I wasn't planning to draw attention to myself. But sometimes silence becomes heavier than the truth. And today, mine was suffocating. I stood near the food table, pretending to sort the plates again. Anything to keep my hands busy. But my mind was spiraling, sinking deeper into the same ache that had been following me for years. Mom called out from across the field, laughing as she held Sara's arm. "Thank God for this girl. She always shows up, always handles everything." Where would we be without her? It wasn't the words. It was the ease with which she said them. The certainty. The tone that carried a lifetime of unspoken comparison. My throat tightened so sharply, I almost winced. I turned away, blinking hard, trying to push the tears back. This wasn't the place. This wasn't the time. But my breath came shallow, shaky. Someone tapped my shoulder gently. I turned. It was Sara. Her smile had faded completely now. Her brows were furrowed, eyes scanning my face, searching for something she couldn't name. "Hey," she said softly. "Why are you standing here alone? Come sit with everyone." I forced a tiny smile. "I'm fine. Just needed a minute." She studied me for a moment more. Her expression shifted, a flicker of guilt, maybe recognition, maybe confusion. She sighed. "Look, if you're upset, I didn't mention you in the toast." I froze. My stomach dropped. So she knew. She noticed. She saw the hurt. But instead of coming to me earlier, she brushed it off. Something snapped in me. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want drama. But I couldn't hold it anymore. "Mention me?" I said, my voice trembling. "Sara, you looked everywhere but at me." She blinked. "I wasn't trying to ignore you, but you did." Her mouth opened, then closed. Behind her, I could still hear Mom talking about her. Responsible, dependable, always there, the real one who keeps things together. My chest tightened again. I looked down at my hands. They were trembling. "Do you have any idea," I said softly, "how it feels to stand at the edge of your own family and realize no one even thinks you show up?" Sara's face softened. "That's not true." "It is," I whispered. "It's been true for years." She swallowed, uncertainty settling into her eyes. The silence between us stretched, growing heavier. I took a breath, uneven but determined. "You don't see what I do," I said, "because I don't announce it like you. I don't organize picnics, I don't host dinners, I don't make speeches. But that doesn't mean I haven't been showing up." My voice shook, but I kept going. "I've been showing up for this family in ways nobody bothered to look at. I've helped quietly, supported quietly, held everyone together quietly." The word quietly echoed, because that had been my entire identity. Sara looked down, guilt creeping onto her face. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "I know. But you did." Behind us, laughter rose again. Loud, careless, warm. It felt like hearing another language. My voice broke for the first time. "I just wanted you to see me." Sara's eyes lifted to mine, filled with something fragile. I continued, barely able to breathe through the tightness in my throat. "When you made that toast for a moment, I thought maybe, you'd look at me, acknowledge me, include me, even accidentally." My voice faded to a whisper. "But you didn't." Sara's expression crumpled. Her shoulders dropped. Her breath caught. "I thought you knew," she murmured. "I thought you always knew how much I—" "How much you what?" I asked softly. "Remember me? Value me? See me?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. She hadn't. Not really. Not for a long time. And I had been shrinking myself smaller and smaller to accommodate that truth. The wind blew softly between us, rustling the picnic mats, carrying the distant laughter of the family that felt increasingly unlike mine. Sara stepped closer. Her voice shook. "I didn't realize," she said. "I didn't realize how much it meant to you." A tear slipped down my cheek before I could wipe it. "It didn't mean a lot," I whispered. "It meant everything." The words hung in the air, heavy, undeniable, irreversible. And for the first time, Sara had no words. Sara's eyes glistened, but before either of us could speak again, Mom's voice cut through the air behind us. "There you two are. Come on. Everyone's waiting for the group photo." She stopped mid-sentence, because she finally saw my face. The redness in my eyes. The tightened jaw. The barely hidden hurt that had been building all afternoon. Her smile faded. "Sara?" Mom asked, confused. "What happened?" Sara looked at me, helpless, unsure whether to speak. I didn't want a public scene. I didn't want eyes on me. I didn't want the family to gather around like spectators. But sometimes truth spills out even when you try to hold it in. Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice. "What's going on?" I inhaled shakily. "Nothing. I'm fine." She frowned. "You don't look fine." Dad turned from across the yard, noticing the tension. A few aunts paused mid-conversation. The cousins stopped laughing. The atmosphere shifted, subtly, slowly, as people realized something was off.
Great.
Exactly what I didn't want. Sara exhaled, finally breaking the silence. "Mom, she's upset about the toast." Mom blinked. The toast? But it was just a simple appreciation. For who? I asked softly. Mom tilted her head, confused and frustrated. For the people who helped this family. For the ones who are dependable. There it was. Dependable. Reliable. Responsible. Every word that had never once been used for me. "Mom," I said slowly, "you all act like I don't help. Like I don't show up. Like I don't matter." The surrounding conversations died completely. Half the family was watching now, the way people do when something uncomfortable is unfolding but no one knows how to step away. Mom stiffened. "Beta, that's not fair. Your sister?" "I'm not talking about Sara," I interrupted gently. "I'm talking about me." Sara stepped back slightly, guilt tightening her expression. I continued, even though my voice shook. "For years, I've been treated like the extra piece. The one people remember only when convenient. The one who's never praised because what I do isn't loud enough or big enough or visible enough." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're exaggerating. We appreciate you." "For what?" I asked again. Not angrily, just honestly. Mom's mouth opened, but nothing came out. A murmur rippled through the family. A few relatives looked down at the grass. Some glanced between me and Sara, uncomfortable. Dad stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Let's not make a scene." "It's not a scene," I said quietly. "It's my feelings." That sentence, that small, trembling sentence, made everyone fall silent again. Sara wiped at her eyes, her voice soft.
Mom, she's right.
"We do leave her out. More than we realize." Mom turned sharply to her. "What?" "She's been showing up too," Sara said through a cracking voice.
We just don't see it.
"Because we're so used to you praising me for everything that you forgot she exists in this family too." My breath hitched. Sara's face softened with regret as she continued. "When I made the toast, I didn't think about her. Not once. And that's the problem." Mom looked between us, struggling to process everything unfolding, struggling to accept that maybe, just maybe, she hadn't been fair. Aunt Huma gently murmured, "We do praise Sara a lot." Another cousin added, "We never ask how she's doing." The truth wasn't just mine anymore. It was becoming visible to everyone. Mom's face reddened, embarrassment or anger. I couldn't tell. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," I replied softly. And I kept pretending it didn't. Sara took a step closer, her voice trembling. "You've been alone in your struggles, haven't you?" I swallowed hard. "Yes," I whispered. "I have." A wave of guilt washed over her face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because," I said, feeling the words burn as they escaped, "you stopped seeing me a long time ago." The silence that followed was heavy, unforgiving.
Real.
Mom pressed her fingers to her chest, as if the weight of my words physically hurt her. Sara wiped her cheek, her breath shaky. Dad looked away, uncomfortable with the truth laid bare. And I felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. Because speaking the truth doesn't fix everything instantly, but it opens the door.
And today?
That door had finally opened. The family drifted away slowly after that. Not in judgment, not in discomfort, but in that respectful way people step back when they know something private needs to unfold. Mom stayed frozen for a long moment, staring at me as if she was seeing a version of me she didn't recognize, or maybe one she had refused to see. Sara stood beside her, wiping her face, breathing shakily. And I stood there too, feeling the weight of the moment settle into my bones. For once, no one filled the silence. No one tried to rush past the discomfort. No one told me to calm down or let it go. They all simply stopped. Sara broke the silence first, her voice soft and trembling. "Can we talk? Just us." I nodded, though my stomach twisted. Mom nodded too. We walked away from the crowd, toward a quieter patch of grass near the trees where the noise of the picnic became distant. Sara wrapped her arms around herself, as if she was cold. Her eyes were swollen, her voice small. "I didn't know I made you feel like that," she whispered. I looked at her, not at the sister, who always outshined me, but at the girl I once knew. The one who held my hand during thunderstorms, who braided my hair before school, who shared secrets with me before sleep. "Maybe you didn't mean to," I said softly, but I felt it. Her lips trembled. "I thought you didn't care." I exhaled slowly, because I didn't say anything. She blinked several times, trying to keep her tears in. "I got used to being the one who does everything," she said quietly. "And I guess I stopped noticing when you did things too.
I thought you were fine.
I thought you didn't need recognition." "I didn't need recognition," I replied gently. "I just needed you to remember I existed." Her face crumpled completely then. She stepped forward, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry." I didn't hesitate. I hugged her, not because everything was perfect, not because the past disappeared, but because in that hug, we were two sisters again, not rivals in a family system that had unconsciously divided us. Mom stood a few feet away, watching with a stiff posture, her hands trembling slightly. When Sara and I pulled apart, she stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "I failed you," she said. My heart clenched, not in anger, in recognition. This was the first time in my life I heard those words from her. "You didn't fail me," I said softly. "You just didn't see me." Her eyes watered. "You're right. I didn't." I was so proud of Sara's accomplishments that I forgot to appreciate your strength, your kindness, your quiet ways of helping. I underestimated you. I swallowed hard, hearing it out loud. The thing I'd been feeling for years was like letting go of breath I'd been holding my whole life. Mom stepped closer. Her voice shook. "You have carried your own burdens without ever asking for help. And instead of seeing your independence, I mistook it for distance. I am sorry for that." Tears spilled down my cheeks. I didn't wipe them. Sara placed a hand on my shoulder. Mom placed the other. For the first time in a long time, I felt held. Not compared. Not judged. Not overshadowed. Just held. Mom whispered, "From today onward, Beta, no more labels. No more golden child. No more invisible child. Just my daughters. Equally loved." I nodded, letting her words sink into the cracks inside me. Sara smiled through tears. "And no more toasts that don't include you." A small laugh escaped me, weak, watery, but real. We walked back toward the picnic slowly, together. The air felt different around us. Lighter.
Softer.
As we approached the family, Cousin Sara called out, "We're taking another group photo, this time with everyone. Come." Sara looked at me first, not at the others, not past me, at me. And she said, with genuine warmth, "Come stand next to me." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was stepping into someone else's place. I felt like I was stepping into my own.